Rahubat, greetings. Welcome back to the Actual Facts podcast, the Actual Facts channel. For those that are just tuning in and are new, I'm Dr. Dubois York. For those that are returning, we appreciate you all for supporting the channel, and we hope you are learning as much of these from these actual facts and appreciate it as much as we are appreciative for you tuning in and us allowing us, the channel, teaching you all and giving this information to the world. Of course, those that are just tuning in, this actual facts channel, we present the doctrine of our ancient spiritual science and our ancestors that has been taught to us by His Excellency, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, Panabab Yanun. This spiritual science of Wu Sabat is for the Nagardanadu, the Negroid race, the African race, information that has been lost. And we are doing our best to make sure that the misinformation and the lies that has been taught to our people globally is erased from the minds of our children and our descendants. And in these actual facts and this doctrine that has been written in over 1,500 books by our Father in flesh, Heavenly Father in flesh, and it covers a various amount of topics and series that is available to the public for those that are interested. As you can see, this is episode 19, and we've covered many different topics over the last 7 or 8 months, and we will continue. And we're getting great feedback from people who are seeking facts and seeking truth, and is tired of religious doctrines, tired of beliefs, tired of lies, they're tired of misinformation, tired of mythologies, and tired of simply being lied to. And so we are doing our best to make sure that we cover as much as we can within the publications. Now, what I wanted to touch on briefly before we start, as you can see, this title, Nuwaupian Neuroscience and the New Being, right? Neuroplasticity, neurogenesis. We're going to cover the brain in its entirety. So it's impossible to do that, to cover it in its entirety. What we will do is cover the basics of how the neuroscience of Wu Sabat and the sciences that are modern, that have advanced technologies to study the brain. And we're going to cover the basics of it. And we're also going to get into how this science applies to you as Nagardanadu, as African people and people of Melanite descendancy, and all of those that are just basically interested in this newfound information that has been given to us by our ancestors, Panatharu, through our Heavenly Father in flesh, His Excellency, Dr. Malachi Z.K. York. What I do want to talk about briefly, to give people up to date about the day and time that we're in, there's a few topics I would like to cover. First, one is obviously yesterday was May 8th, and May 8th is a day that is very, let's say, I don't want to, there's no words to explain the day and the impact it has had, because of the fact that our president in chief was kidnapped and has been tortured in the most, let's say, secure and inhumane prison in the world, ADX Florence. He's been there since about 2006, 2007. Over 24 years, he's been locked down. He's currently 80. He'll be 81 next month. This day of loss, as we title it, is very hurtful to the Nuwaupian Nation because of the violations, not only because of the violations, because of many violations that are, let's say, across the board, international law, domestic law, universal law, the illegalities that has taken place over the last 6,000 years against our race, and the 400 years that our people have been in bondage under colonialism and other subjugating frameworks of Adamite and colonialism that has destroyed or tried to destroy our nation. And we're not going to stop fighting to make sure that all justice is given and due, and the reparations and the repairing of these injuries are done. So we're fighting for the freedom of our father, and also he's doing his best. A lot of people was asking about that. 24 years incarcerated, the strength of this being standing strong and teaching us, writing over 600, 700 books in the last 20, maybe more than that. I'm not even sure how many he's written, but that's what's available. And so even incarcerated, I mean, the magnitude of his strength and his endurance and his patience and his love for us to go through this, what he's going through, so he can redeem and liberate our minds, is an incredible feat. It's unearthly. And so I always make sure that it's compulsory that we acknowledge this, our father, our chief, our president, our spiritual guide. And in this day and time, every time we open the Actual Facts podcast, so we can begin to discuss this affirmation that is so desperately needed. And so we appreciate everyone and those that participated and gave acknowledgement, and prayers and chants. All those are important. And so that's something I wanted to touch on before we move forward. And for those that are tuning in, I appreciate you sharing. Make sure you share so people can catch this live. This live is this episode touching on the brain and the ethers of the universal ether, the various ethers that exist in the universe. This is going to get into our science in a way that it's never been done before. Though the science is there, neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, the holographic brain, and things of that nature is there. The science is there. The studies are there. They're neurosurgeons, brain surgeons, individuals who have a very astute knowledge of the brain and its various networks and the components and the areas and the systems that involves the brain's function, and how it is as the master computer over your body and your mind and your life, right? But also the science of it as it relates to our ancestors and what they knew about the brain and the various areas and the neuroplasticity effect of rewiring your brain and regrowing your brain as a new being, as a Nuwaupian. All of that ties in. A lot of times we discuss religious doctrine because of the spell. There's a 6,000-year-old spell that's on our people, and people are coming out of the religious coma. And they're trying to find their way. And we understand that. We're here for that as well. But there's a part of Wu Sabat, our spiritual science, that the Father has taught that literally the scientific world had no clue about. And it's very, very detailed in how he addresses these topics, because the other side of the material world, which is the spiritual world and the etheric world, is unknown to most people and most human beings. They're not aware of the spiritual world because they're not spiritual masters. And the beings who are responsible for giving this affirmation, it has to incarnate, as our Father has done, has incarnated to give us this affirmation and make sure that we have it, and it's comprehensible. A lot of times, if information is scattered and all over the place, people don't really comprehend exactly the goal of how it has to be given to be organized. It has to be organized in a way that the mind can digest it, because because we have been misinformed, your brain has to be restructured and be rewired, and gathering that what you need from yourself, for yourself, from your ancestors, the doctrine that's available to you, you have to take it in, but it has to be assimilated over a period of time where it doesn't confuse the people or confuse people. And our Father has done just such an incredible, amazing job at giving this affirmation to us. So In this lecture, we're going to cover a few of the publications that that's going to cover this lecture that you can have access to. You have access to if you email, right? One of the obviously is the neuroscience of Wu Nuwaup. This is a very, very powerful actual fact. I hope you can see it well. Yeah, this is an incredible actual fact. The neuroscience of Wu Nuwaup. We're going to get into this as well as the natural ether energy. This natural ether energy. This book here, you can see I didn't read this over and over. It's coming apart. You see Fatir al-Akhak-Nashat, which is natural ether energy. This is your spiritual science in detail as it relates to natural nature and the sciences that have the power of natural nature. A lot of people when you deal with technology and you understand technology, they think it's man-made. It's created from the advancement of individuals who have made breakthroughs through various instruments. But really, when you look at the underlying source of technology, it has to do with natural nature. Most of the sciences that are available that come from the mind, or what you call inventions, come from a particular reservoir of knowledge that some individuals are blessed to tap into. Some are given this information where they have advancements, beings, specific beings that are what you will call extraterrestrials. There's a lot of talk about extraterrestrials nowadays. We've been talking, you know us. We on this channel, we go through the various species of beings that are in the multiverses, the universe, that have came to the planet and has influenced the planet. We've covered those in many episodes. However, I think yesterday there was some news where Donald Trump, the president of the colonial federated 13 colonies there, right? They had released extraterrestrial files that were kept secret, right, for so long. And now they can't keep it hidden any longer, because if you follow what's going on, you see that they are following what we're doing. They're following the information that we're disseminating to the planet, because people now want to know. And now that we have the details, when you listen to our lectures, as we go through these patrak and actual facts and master secrets, you'll see that the Father has been laying the groundwork for this preparation for our minds since the 70s, to prepare us for when this day and time will come, where these beings would show themselves and would be made for whatever purposes or intentions they have. It just depends on the species that will be prepared for it, will have knowledge of it. And so these beings, some of them are agreeable, some are disagreeable, some are malevolent, some are benevolent, and their intentions vary. Depends. Our deities, our gods, the Panatharu, our ancestors who exist in the multiverse and this conscious matrix and this spiritual abode that we have access to, has given us the information within these publications in order for us to understand the technology that they're tapping into, which is the matrix of the mental abode. The matrix is the conscious bio grid that this planet is, let's say, the lattice inter-network that this biological entity, the Earth, and you are a part of it, taps into, and this is limited in the matrix. And in this matrix that that obviously you may not be aware of the chips that are in it, which the Father speaks about. They chip this matrix. And the matrix chips are these doctrines, religious doctrines specifically, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and other education, other forms of so-called knowledge that they give you, mythologies, belief systems. All of that has condensed the matrix and has controlled the minds of the people for so long. And in that, when you take that matrix chips, these computer programs chips inside, it changes you from who you are to what they want you to be. And so this is why this new being episode is vital, because you'll understand how to eliminate this programming. You have to rewire your brain and rewire the base program that was inserted from you in you as a baby. And that takes time. It takes organizing what is and filtering what's misinformation, the lies, and it takes some time to do. Is actually growing yourself from inside out. And when you're growing yourself in that way, the brain, it takes time to reorganize from the old system or the old age of which this old cycle, this last 6,000 year cycle, this last 6,000 year moon cycle, to this new sun cycle where you begin to blossom, your brain begins to open up because you've given it the right knowledge and right affirmation. So we're gonna, that's covered in this natural ether energy publication, Actual Facts number 25. We're also going to go into Freaks in the Perfect Creature, the Mind's Eye Patarak as well, and the Black Dot Helix, and the Mind Linked and Mind Linked. So any questions, if you have them, save them, make sure maybe about an hour we'll open up. But you know, our lectures, this one, I don't know. I can't tell you how long it's going to be, but hopefully you tune in, and we're going to get directly into it. The questions that we're going to address, right? We're going to address several questions. Not all the questions. We obviously may have a part two. We're going to have questions that, one of the questions, what does Wu Sabat teach about the brain? We're going to cover that. How is reasoning triggered in the brain? Your reasoning is the mechanism by which you were born with before the Matrix introduction of their doctrine. The reasoning aspect of your mind that is actually comes from the etheric abode. Now, the base etheric gases or etheric abode, there's needs to be an understanding that there are different types of ether. Ether is what creates the material world. The types of ether is what gives the gross elements its characteristics. Depending on the ether and its melting down and how it manifests in the material, depends on it creates a specific organ, the specific body functions. All of this is done by types of ether from the etheric abode. In the etheric abode, there's many different types of ether. There's various different qualities of ether. Ether, for those that don't know, that maybe just not really understanding what ether is on the other side of hydrogen, where the world of quantum physics or quantum entanglement or quantum principles of what you know as nothingness, right? Which is things that are unknown or undetected by scientific instruments in this day and time. So there is a world that some people, religious people, refer to it as the spiritual world. We have a more detailed, the Father has given us a more detailed explanation of this etheric abode. And so we're going to cover some of the etheric types of ethers there are. Many people heard of ether, but they don't know it's different types. And this is going to be covered here and how it plays a part in the creation of the brain. How is the brain created? Why is it created the first few months, the development of the brain, and what creates the gross material of the brain, right? And this is a specific ether. So let's go through types of ether. You have universal ether, right? You have mind ether, right? Now, universal ether, mind ether, you have ether blood, the types of ether that is created by the blood, that is an ether there. You have natural ether, which is it's of the ba'a, the soul. That's what creates the soul. Natural ether. That's the combination of really all the natural ether particles that exist within the universe, and it has its main primary effect in creating the soul. In our case, as Nagardamedou Africans. Then you have helping ether. That's another type of ether, which is your sun rays. Your sun rays, mainly your sun rays, helping ether assist. This ether assists in growth. Now, growth of what? Growth of the material world, the earth, vegetables. You need helping ether, which is the sun, right? It helps to maintain the cycles of existence and the order of the solar system and the order of most of the galaxies have these helping ether bodies, which are your suns, right? The Reye that Reye U, which are your sun rays or rays of the sun, right? Shemesh Reye, which is your the rays that are emanated through the atmosphere that helps things grow. That is your helping ether, right? Or rayas is called. Then you have your head ether, right? Which is the Africans are grown, Africans as a people, because we're grown on the best part of the planet, which is Africa. You are head ether. You're responsible for becoming head ether in what you call ushering in this new etheric conscious cycle that everyone is tapping into, this whole conscious movement that you're speaking about. That's head ether. And you also have what you call brain ethers. Now, brain ethers are the source of unity of and circuits of your brain energy. This is your creative power. Your creative power comes from brain ether. When you are in a natural environment, the foods that you eat are natural, things are moving in a natural nature way for your being. This brain ether it is at its highest potential because you are able to what? Create. And this is what brain ether does. It produces actually brain as well. Then you have your universal ether, which we talked about. So we're going to cover that ether. But let's address, right? Let's address the brain and the aspects of the brain, right? Let's address some of the facts of the. Am I clear? Are we clear? Just type in the chat that I can be heard. Yes, they released the files today. Okay, so let's get into some of the facts about the brain. Now, quick facts about your brain and this incredible machine, this complex, literally it's the most complex machinery in the universe, right? Nothing is more complex than the brain. With this 999 billion neurons, right, that are responsible for communicating from the various hemispheres of your brain. You have your cerebral hemispheres, you have your left and right parts of the brain, you have your cortex part of the brain, you have the many different brain cells, you have your frontal lobe, you have your it's called a corpus callosum, right? You have your brain stem, you have your corpus striatum, right? These are some words you probably never heard, but I'm just giving them to you so you know this is you, right? You have your ventricles of the brain, which are your particular areas. You have your nucleus lentiformis, which is your left part, your internal capsule, which is on the right part of the brain, basic, and your cerebral hemispheres, which are your left and right part. You have your frontal lobe, which is the area of reasoning, and you have the hippocampus. You have your pineal. You have your axiom cells. You have your ganglia cells. You have your neuronal cells and your stem cells from your neurons that creates neurogenesis. Comes from your brain being how it grows from these specific neurons. Cells, stem cells that regrows the brain, and neuroplasticity obviously is why they call it plasticity is because it's like a plastic. It's able to move in a way where it plasters and conforms to the new form that it needs to be from various traumas. Your brain indulges in neuroplasticity. Let's say it combines various networks of cells. If one area is damaged, like a stroke, the other part of the brain is responsible for picking up lost functions. And it's so complex that we're going to try to keep it as minimal as possible without sounding like we're all over the place, because this science is very deep. So now the brain itself in its complexity, the reason why it's so complex is because it has 999 billion nerves, a billion nerve cells, and that's almost a trillion, right? 1 billion from a trillion, which is computers don't even have that many complexities when it comes to its organ and how has it designed itself to create a holographic computer for you having a holographic computer in order for you to experience the physical world. It has taken in many sensories from the physical world that allows you to see, that allows you to hear, that allows you to create a holographic image that you can actually experience what's on what you look at as the outside, which is actually taking place on the inside. That goes into the our AEO doctrine, which speaks about the ancient Egyptian, which is the ancient Egyptian order, that goes into 3D imaging and projection, image projection, right? So this is a part of it's magic, really, right? So your brain isn't fully not deformed. Some people have deformed, but it's not some people in their brain development, it doesn't form until the age of 25, right? Then you have your brain storage capacity, which is considered virtually unlimited. Now, that's another fact about the brain, the unlimited storage capacity. And these storage capacities are sometimes damaged. It's damaged because of the wrong music. It's damaged because you have a certain amount of bytes that if you overload the bytes with information that is not necessarily progressive for your mind or progressive for your being, it takes up unnecessary data and it takes up unnecessary storage. Even with, let's say, dreams. When a person dreams, we were talking about this the other day, your brain has the ability to release information that is stored that is damaging to you or is an overload. So you can overload your brain and you can damage your brain through viruses, which is a computer does as well. When you have damages to your brain as a virus, most of your viruses come from religious doctrines, belief systems. It's just the facts that religion has done that much damage, where it has introduced a virus into the matrix that has caused your computer to malfunction because of the reasoning faculty and the reasoning principle that your brain is built upon. Belief systems create a gap between reasoning and intellectual belief systems, meaning that your reasoning is stunted because the matrix teaches you to accept and believe things that you are given, that you learn in school, that you learn from television, that you learn from radio, to control you. And it separates the reasoning part. So it creates a virus because it's not functioning to its fullest magnitude. And it disrupts the circuitry. Some people become delusional. Some people become, let's say, assumptuous. Some people just live in the world of spookism, where they have accepted doctrines that are not factual based. All of this affects the reasoning part of your mind. And so that virus is there. So when you, so the development of, if you don't mature until the age of 25, let's say, and for 25 years, you've been given false information and your computer has been functioning with the virus, you need an antivirus. And obviously the actual facts doctrine, Wu Sabat, the information that the Father has given us is the antivirus, because it eliminates the virus by rejecting the sickness of the religious doctrines. It rejects the misinformation that the world has given you, and it eliminates the fog of six ether that has clouded the mind, and it clouded the recepting points, meaning that the commands that you enter into your brain, right, to do what's right, to be progressive, to let's say unify, right, for the African race as a whole, for Nuwaupians as a whole to unify, these viruses allow division. These viruses, one of the viruses is competition, right? When you see competition is a viral infection that has caused people's networks not to entangle and not to connect. And that's why you have so many people going against each other, because the network is off, because that viral load of competition is something you were raised from. How were you raised from competition? Well, all of your sports are competitive, right? When you have competitive sports and you have some teams, let's say football teams of a specific city, right? Let's say the Los Angeles Raiders or Los Angeles Rams, so-called same state, but you have two different teams of the same city. That creates division. Basketball teams, the mentality of being competitive, the mentality of making money off competition is what creates division. So you think it's normal. Most people assume that having competitive sports as entertainment is something that's a normal activity when it's not. It's not something that natural nature creates in a way amongst our race. Our race was always unified, and we always used a form of persuasion in order, not competition. Persuasion was the other method. Competition was the Adamites' method of, or the deities of the gods of the biblical and the Quranic and their religious world. They introduced competition to human beings in order to entertain them. And this is why the coaches and the owners, let's say the coaches of these teams, right? They sit back and they enjoy this competitive action because it creates ups and downs and emotional control. Most of your championships, when you have a championship, most of the teams become very emotional, right? Some become angry, some become frustrated. You have all of these emotional exchanges, and it creates division. Religious doctrine does that as well. So competition is what is a serious viral load that has even created division amongst, it's a main division amongst the Ngardanadu, who are the Africans, melanated people in the West. Most of our people can't get along because they are in competition with who has the right information, who knows more, who is the leaders of the blacks in America. Is it the Moors? Is it the Hebrew Israelites? Is it the Sunni Muslims? Is it the Nation of Islam? All of them, all of that is a part of creation. So it affects, this viral load is very detrimental. Now, let's get into this brain. This, yes, creates imbalances too. Your brain information. So how your brain works and travels of or exchanging information, it literally travels at almost 268 miles per hour, right? And this is when a neuron is stimulated. Neurons is what exchanges your information and sends messages that you want, your thoughts, basically. Thoughts are stimulated through neuronal messaging through your synapses, and they exchange in the etheric brain ethers at a very, it's a science between nothingness and somethingness. That area where this brain information is channeled from one neuron to the next, that thin line of exchange is invisible, and it's magical because it's undetectable. And because it's undetectable, it creates a space or a bridge between the etheric world and the material world. And this is where all creation takes place, within the brain. This is how you create images. This is how you bring forth your memories. This is how you remember things from your past. You bring this neuronal exchange, right, from this synapsid, and the stronger this connection is, the more vivid the images that you have in your mind will become. And this what happens because your brain is holographic, you take in all of these senses and create the image. The stronger the image, the more vivid, the stronger the sensors. Your sensors are your eye, your light that you see, or the photons that come into the eye retina, your cornea, through the cones and your rods, and the hearing, which is your sound waves that travel through the atmosphere and touches your eardrum, right? When it touches your eardrum and it exchanges, or let's say transforms into a chemical electromagnetic vibration, right? Electricity literally in your nervous system, and transforms that into a chemical message that your brain can determine as sound. That's a sensor. Also, the cilia in your nose, when you smell, is a very powerful sensor that creates an image. Most of the time, when you have an image that, or let's say you want to remember something, smell is the strongest sensor. So most people think it's sight or it's hearing. No, it's really smell. Smell is attached to a event that took place at a specific time. Maybe, obviously, in the past, if you smell your grandmother's favorite perfume most on a Sunday, or when she's cooking a favorite food, that memory, when you smell, it brings back the strongest memory details and thoughts that your neurons can use to create the image of the event, and it replays this event in your brain, and that's how you remember an event. Now you can recall an event, right? Smell, also taste. Tasting something, a particular food, a particular, basically food, most that's right, drink, right? It brings back, it triggers these neuronal passage, this exchange that's stored in your mind as a chemical. Your brain can recall it because of the sensor. The sensor of the smell or the taste communicates to what you have stored in your mind in the form of chemical messages, and it's exchanged through electrical impulses that travels through this huge network of neurons through axons, is called. Maybe I'm pronouncing that particular cell wrong. Axon. No, I'm not. AXOM, right? This is where they connect, right? They actually bridge themselves together and exchange the information. So when a person says, do you remember a specific time? It's not literally you're pulling. Sometimes, okay, let me say this. Sometimes in order to help you recall a memory, those senses have to be stimulated. The smell, if you smell a perfume, then it recall the image. If you see a specific image or a movie where you were scared, like Freddy Krueger, you may see the image and then recall the image of Beck when you saw the movie and how it traumatized you. These sensors recall this holographic image in your brain, and your brain reproduces it in real time. Now, this is how the brain information travels and how it reconnects and creates this holographic 3D image for you to see, which most people think they do. You don't see, let me say this, you don't see what you look at is not what you're seeing. Let me say it that way. When you look through your eyes, or when the photons of an image reflect off of an object and goes into your brain, right? The brain, through your sensory eye perception, converts the photons to a chemical image. So you're not seeing the object, you're seeing the reflection of light that goes into the retina, through the cornea, through to the cones and the rods, and the optic nerve crosses in the back part of the eye, right? As it crosses, that X point is where it reconfigures the image, and the brain takes the image as it comes in, it flips it upside down, and it projects it to the area of the brain that's responsible for the visual sensory, and it converts it to a chemical message, and then it's recreated in your hippocampus area. The image is recreated. That's why when you close your eyes, you can still see the image. It's like taking a lens on a camera. It takes a snapshot of the image, pulls in the light, condenses the light, converts it to electric impulses and chemical imagery, right, that your brain can decipher at a later time, and then recreate the image at lightning speed, 268 miles per hour. That's just one of the magic processing, right? So the human brain is so powerful that it takes 82.9944 computer processors. That's how powerful that is. 82.944, right? That's 944 tenths, right? Of computer processors, 40 minutes, right? 82 computer processors. It takes it 40 minutes to stimulate just 1 second of its activity. Ponder upon that again, right? Your brain, yours, the one you have in your skull, is so powerful, it takes 82 computer processors to duplicate 1 second of its activity. That's incredible. That's not, right? That's an incredible amount of processing power that your brain has. On an average, right, your spinal stops growing at age 4, right? But your bundles of nervous tissue and support cells sends messages to the brain at that at that particular age, right? When it says spinal column stop growing at 4, it's meaning that it's complete and it's still at that age of 4, it still has the storage capacity and is working at its highest efficiency, even though it's not matured until 25. This is one of the magic processes of your damag. Damag is brain in our language, and we're going to go over some Sabatic, right, words that you should be familiar with. We're going to get into our words so you understand how the Sabatic language and hear the words that you should be familiar with in as a Nuwaupian, speaking Nuwaupic, speaking Sabatic, in order for you to be clear as you begin on your journey. Yes, when we put our focus into the image, it turns into a chemical. Exactly. So that this is one of the brain. It goes into we have more to cover. So it says it is when they say that you only use a certain portion of your brain, they're not. What people say, okay, you only use 10%. You don't only use 10%, right? It's not that you only use 10%. It's more so that you actually use all of it. It's just that certain areas are perfected because of what you've been taught. So your neuroplasticity, the areas that have to be regrown, haven't been regrown to its fullest capability because of the information you've been getting. And because you're not using your abilities to create and everything is given to you, you haven't named the animals, you haven't named what you see on the planet. It's not under your authority. You haven't created, let's say, the environment that you live in, the societies that you've built. Our people in this last 6,000 years, it hasn't been under your control. So the development of your brain in its fullest capacity, amongst other things such as the mafkuzet and the let's say potions or the chemical secret formulas that were once in your body is no longer there, that activates other areas of your brain and other areas of your DNA that will complete your physical body in order for you to receive the highest mental reservoir of information that's available, because those things are missing as well. As a part of the system that you're in, not allowing you or keeping you from being your creative person or who you are supposed to be, has stunted the ability to use your entire brain as a whole. So not that you don't use all of your brain, the 10% that you use is the only 10% that has been developed to enough where that's the only capacity that you've been limited to, 10% of it. Now, using your entire brain, you'll be able to create worlds. You'll be able to create universes, which you are. Your body, your being is a universe. You have trillions of cells in your body, and each one of these cells are commanded by your brain. So your brain actually has the ability to create universes within universes, even though they're infinitesimal, they're very small, but so is Earth small within this universe, though it appears to be grand to you, right? This sun, 93 million miles away, appears to be grand, but in the scheme of the universal bodies, and when you pull off from the visual aspect to see the galaxies and the Milky Way and the billions of stars within it, it's very small. You see it as a small cluster. And that's how the universe, multiverses are within Pa'ut, which is the all. So yes, you are a creator of multiverses. You are a creator of universes. It's just your physical, your brain capacity has to be redeveloped. And in doing that, Wusabat grows your brain because it gives you information that you have not had access to. And that restructures, right, through neuroplasticity. It realigns and recalibrates how your brain communicates and how it brings alive other areas of your brain so the full 100% can be used. So as the more information you get, the more stimulating the more stimulating the facts, the more you begin to know, not believe. You've been believing for so long, it hasn't grown you. You have to know things, because knowing falls in reasoning, and reasoning is what creates. your mind literally reasons out in the with brain ether, which is a part of the etheric part of the ether types of ether. Your brain has ether, and it melts down that brain ether to create the brain. That's what happens from the etheric world when these material immaterial worlds mesh. The etheric counterpart of your physical, as you're growing in the womb, the etheric gases that exist melt down to the material world and create various organs. The master organ is your brain is created from brain ether, which is the highest quality of ether. There's other types of ether as we just went over, but brain ether is the highest quality, which creates or meshes to grow the brain in the exact form that you have. And the better the quality of ether, brain ether, the better the brain power. That's why certain beings who are born in natural environments, they're naturally smarter, because the foods that they eat, the air that they breathe, the water that they drink, the environment that the circumstances that the mother is in, and pulling the matter in from the etheric world where she grows this baby in a womb, the brain ether is the first that begins to create through reasoning to grow the body. And that's why most, like I said, the Father teaches when most children are born in environments that are the healthiest and the most peaceful, they have the highest potential to be the deities, and that child becomes a new being. You can become a new being. You are the new beings. You just have to get the new information through Wu Sabat. So let's move forward with some of the questions. Right now, these are some of the facts. Right? Any other? You have any other? Any questions? You have questions there. Try to save those questions if you can. Right? So I can cover them. I don't want to miss as the chat goes up. So when you see, let's address how complex. Obviously, right? The brain, like I said, the brain is more. It speaks about natural ether energy for Tir al Akak Nashat. The brain is, because it's more complex than any system or any computer anywhere in the universe. Right? They call it the master. They call it a creative, the creative God, right? The God being of you is your brain. Now, because the brain is constantly undergoing its own they call it stem cell therapy, right? And this process of neurogenesis, where neurons are born, right? And that because this neuroplasticity and this neurogenesis process affects you in a way that can help or hinder your creative process, the more neural communication you have, the greater the creative abilities you can pass on genetically as well. Right? This is why the learning an instrument, learning a new language, all of this creates the perfect environment for the highest performance of neuroplasticity, where your brain is always growing because you're giving it new things, and that programs your genes, and your child becomes more. That's why they say some children are geniuses. Why? Because the mother was playing an instrument or reading a lot when she was in gestation, when the child was being grown. All of that affects. So you have to actually, when it says to be reborn, this is where the ancients got the term in order to be reborn, or double resurrection. When you're regrowing, you're a new brain. You're becoming a new God, and you are becoming a new creator in this new cycle, right? And this is all a part. This is a real science. It has nothing to do with the religious doctrines. This is a science that's applicable. Now, when we say, okay, the brain is a creator, how is it a creator? Well, because you create images in your mind from what you think about and what you have been influenced by, right? And this is in the mind's eye. This is a patrak that you can receive. The father has written, there's a series of books called Patrak, where the mind's eye speaks about how most, even in the religious world, people create the images of things that they prefer to believe in that will have an effect on them in a positive and negative way. Muslims oftentimes say they had an experience with Allah, or Allah came to them in a dream. Christians sometimes will look into the clouds and they will see what? They will see sometimes images of the Mary, right, in a cloud, because they created the image because they wanted to create a confirmation for their belief systems. Jews will do the same thing, right? They'll say, well, I picked a wafer from one of their religious classes, or let's say Rosh Hashanah or Day of Unleavened Bread, and they picked a wafer, right? And then they say, oh, I saw an image of the Hebrew letters Yahweh, right, on literally a cracker. This all types of ridiculous religious so-called phenomena that people don't know that it's the brain creating these images, and it happens all walks of all walks of life, in all areas of societies, where, right, some people say, well, I saw this statue of Mary and it started bleeding, right? In their mind, not bleeding, let's say Yahshua, or they claim they're Christ, they're God, or Jesus, or whatever, or even Mary, they say, oh, she began to cry, right? And the tears was running, and then in their mind, they will create that. But what happens is, literally, the science part of it is that the condensation from the water may have seeped through the paint because it rained a few days before. And it just so happened at that particular point that they saw the water come out the same way a glass has condensation on the side, the glass sweats. These are religious, so-called mind's eyes creations that all people from all walks, Buddhists do it, Zoroastrianists do it, even monks do it, that you can create in that way. All of this ties into how you have rewired your brain through neuroplasticity to create and see things that you want. So your environment allows you, the environment influences you to where you being fed by these various stimuli through advertisement, television, radio, and in this matrix this conscious matrix grid that you've attached, they literally have created you into a being that that's no longer in your control of. You're no longer in control of your emotion. You're not even in control of your thinking, because you've been taught how to think and how to respond. And that's why most of the Black organizations of the, let's say, something that we all can identify with, right? Black or African American organizations, right? When you look at how they respond to the oppression, they typically protest. They'll protest, they'll demonstrate, they'll march, right? Because that's what you've been taught a solution is, but it hasn't worked. But you would think that as with the creative abilities that you would try to find a method that would work. But no one has even explored the possibilities of what else can work, because you've been marching for 100 years, right? No one has the creative ability, right, to say, well, let's do our own thing. Let's stop complaining about our oppression. Let's stop complaining about this, what people have done to us, and create an environment and create things that we can benefit from amongst ourselves in our network, or our environment of people who think like we do. But you don't have individuals that are thinking like the American Negroes. You don't find that around the world. So the mind that has been adopted by them is not your own mind. That's why the Father says you're not in your right mind. And so this doctrine, Nuwaupu, will realign and reorganize your mind. All of that has to do with neuroplasticity. Literally, with the habits that as a race that we've created, amongst ourselves is what's hindering us. Complaining is what's hindering you, because you focus on the problem and your mind begins to automatically, even in conversation with a person that seems to be influential to the Black community or the African American community or the Caribbean community, they'll say, see, the problem is, now this is habitual. Generations do it now. The moment a person, you think you're going to hear something that's progressive, they'll focus on the problem. You never hear the solution. Once a person says the solution is have your own nation. The solution is get up under the being that's incarnated to teach and regrow you as a new being. Learn from the information that you need in order for your ancestors, connect to your ancestors, and create a positive future in this next 24,000 year cycle with Wu Sabat. The solution is learn your own lahaj, learn your own language. The solution is you don't hear that right? So these are habitual practices that our people have adopted, and this is why they're on this hamster wheel, because of the science of neuroplasticity and how your brain was grown for you from someone else, from another race, from the Arabs. The Arabs grew your brain. The moment you convert and you stop questioning, they begin to reorganize how you're supposed to think, how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to talk, how you are supposed to speak, how you are supposed to reject Africa, reject your genes, reject your blood, reject your descendancy, reject your culture, reject your royalty, reject your civilizations, reject all of that, and live and think in our code and connect to our etheric cord. When you connect, and from the religious perspective, when you connect to the Arabs from the brain reorganizing of your brain, when they reorganize your brain or say control your mind, then they have the power to remotely control where you go and what you do, and you'll forever be enslaved. And that's why people like, why can't we get out of this situation? Why can't we? Because you have to regrow your brain, and you have to learn that neuroplasticity, the effects of it are positive, and some people have negative regrowth, traumas, and abuse, right? When it becomes habitual, you think it's normal. Now, so let's get into this holographic part. Yeah, this question. Does listening to binaural beats scientifically vibrate and create your neural pathways? I'm not familiar with that word. Is that mistype? Reye Senenda beat scientifically. Does it scientifically vibrate and create new neural? Yeah, music creates new neural pathways, but it's the learning of the tones and how to create the sound is what creates the neural pathways. Some beats used to enter alpha state. Right. Well, that's more so a frequency. When you ask about the into alpha state, that's locking in onto a frequency. That's different. When you lock in onto a frequency, you're riding the wave of a specific frequency, and your brain, right, through the auditory system, connects and creates a consistent frequency that your brain locks onto. And when it locks onto that, it reverberates, or let's say revibrates, or let's say, let me look at the word I'm looking for, that it generates the same frequency throughout all of your cells. And that's why some people go into a trance state, because listening to certain beats is because they're riding the frequency. Creating neural pathways, right? Neurological pathways from these synapses, right? That is done from learning new things, like how to combine certain notes on an instrument that you've never done. Because your brain is not familiar with that particular activity, it begins to, as you input through those sensories, through eyes, through hearing, through smell, whatever, right? Those sensory, they call them sensory reference beams. It's called in in the correct term. They're called reference beams. The object beam is your eye. The reference beams are your other sensories. Through those other reference beams, the brain begins to learn how to learn that. Learn how to learn an instrument. Learn how to learn a specific language. When you learn how to learn, you're creating a pathway, a new path to that particular event that your brain has never experienced. And that's how you create new pathways, not just by listening. Now, when you hear the om or a chant or specific tone that the Father uses, right? Those in certain music, right? The frequency eliminates outside sound that is disturbance to your natural harmony of your body. So the tones that you hear, that's why it's important to listen to certain types of music that are from natural instruments and not synthetic, because the natural instruments, right, have a effect on your DNA to where your DNA vibrates to the natural environment and your body begins to vibrate at the frequency by which your environment is controlling, or your environment is controlling natural environment, natural sounds, natural music, natural instruments. It affects you and recalibrates your body to that frequency. So the Father, in order to eliminate, this is why your chants and your prayers are important, in order to remove the sound from outside frequencies that do not calibrate with your genes, there's let's say a protective measure that is created with those sounds, and other frequencies can't penetrate it. That's why certain tones that the Father introduced, like there's a specific tone, an AO tone, where he's talking in the beginning, he said it's a visualization. Yes, the visualization tone is because that's blocking out other frequencies that's trying to penetrate. Even though you don't hear the radio signals, they still enter your being, such as even music. That's why you hear sounds, hear music in your brain that's not playing on a device close by. You may not know it's not playing. You may be picking up that frequency, though it's not coming through your ear, it's still coming through your genes. That's why the environment, right, that you're in, when you hear certain music, right, when you turn it off, the music is still playing because that frequency has penetrated. How do you keep it blocked? By creating a frequency that your body exists on, right, FAC, and then that blocks out outside interferences, and then you can calibrate yourself to the natural state and vibrate there. And there is where you hear your voices. There's in meditation, you hear the voices of your ancestors. There where you get proper connection to Panatharu. So that's what that is. I hope that's clear. Sometimes I'll be trying to gather my thoughts because of the affirmation the Father's given us in so many books. And I want to make sure that the answer is clear in that way. So certain music, it doesn't create neural pathways, but creating the music does. Not just listening to it. Not creating the music, but creating or learning the instrument. Now, learning how to make the beat, learning how to, I'm answering the brother Ray, learning how to learn an instrument, learning how a new language creates it, but not necessarily listening to it creates it. Listening to it is the frequency that you tap into. Okay, so any other questions? Yes, exactly. Our natural state is peace. Yeah, natural state and peace, and certain music throws off our state of being in peace. Exactly. Chants and prayers can realign you. Absolutely. So any other questions? Let's move forward to the other questions that we have. I think the holographic brain. Well, let's address the holographic brain, right? And what is the holographic brain? So now, because like I said, like the Father teaches that your brain has a certain amount of bytes, just like a computer, has a certain amount of memory, just like a computer. What happens if you use, well, you have an infinitesimal amount of storage, but you can't access the storage unless you create neural pathways or new information that can use this storage up. Now, you can destroy the storage. You can destroy your bytes. You can lose memory. And you lose memory by not accessing or not using your memory cells in order to regrow new memory or regrow new neuronal passageways or regrow the network to store new memory. It's like a shortage in your network. You can't get to a certain information because there's a shortage. The same thing happens with your brain. And when you overload it, you can overload the bytes that you have with, right now, your brain is recording everything that you're hearing and seeing every day. Even when you're asleep, things that you hear, things that you see. You can watch a news program, you can watch a movie, focus on the main character, and yet the people in the background you're still recording. It's not prioritized because you're not focused on those people, but your brain is still recording it. And every day, 365 days a year, throughout your entire life, at a certain period, if you have so much of that misinformation or misinformation in your mind, then the bytes that you do have, if they become overloaded or the storage becomes, let's say, outside of your RAM or your memory capacity, right? And your brain will protect itself by eliminating the data that you don't use. And that's where dreams come in. You dream out data that your brain doesn't need because you're overloaded it for that day. A lot of stress factors of stress overload your brain because there's a massive amount of nervous system communication that takes place that your brain creates. That's a psychological effect. It creates a psychological effect from things you create from stress that may not be necessarily factual. You can be in a situation where you may think, oh man, I'm about to run out of gas. And from running out of gas, you will create images and events in your mind that did not happen. Like you may be on a long road and you say 20 miles to the next gas station. And you may think, I'm not going to make it. In 10 miles, I'm going to run out of gas. I'm going to be on the side of the road. Oh, my phone has died. Who am I going to call? I don't have anyone there. Something may happen. I may have to take a hitchhike. I may not be able to get a ride. You start looking at cars to see how many cars are around, to see if you can get a ride, to see if you can get help. Right? You look at the environment. You're not familiar with the environment. That's a stress factor. You're thinking that if your car runs out of gas in 5 miles, right, you're going to have to walk 15 miles, right? And you don't have the energy to do it, right? You may run out of, you may get thirsty. All of this affects you from that one thought. This stress factor, literally, you're creating events that it surges your brain for that particular moment. So the psychological effect affects your health as well, because in that event creation, your body goes through it because you created the image, and they can't distinguish between the real event. Your brain, your mind can't distinguish between the real event from the event you created. That's why certain dreams affect you. Wake up sweating, nocturnal emissions, which is wet dreams, sexual encounters in a dream. Your physical body sometimes cannot make the distinction because your brain creates the holographic image the same way your brain creates a holographic image from a real event. Your brain creates a holographic image from an event you created. And the body is affected the same way. So you can't distinguish. The stress factors are just as real as you are an event that's traumatizing from one you're creating from one that did not happen. So it's important Rahubat, for those that are tuning in, it's important not to control your stress factors. Don't allow your mind to create situations that don't exist. A lot of when you see people with a worried face, they have because they may live a normal life, what appears to be a normal life, but they just have a worried look about them. Why? It's because that they have created worrisome situations in their everyday mind state. This is what that the matrix has created with you, with fears, with religion, with hopes and dreams and possibilities and judgment. This fear is constant, and it's a constant stress factor on your physical health. It makes you age. It's a constant effect on your mental health, where you're not productive in societies and communication and social environments, because you have a distrust for people from an event that in the past that has now come into the present to make you feel like this event is now everyone is involved with it. You can't trust no women. You can't trust no men. You can't trust none of your family. You can't trust a person that wants to befriend you. Why? Because four people did it before. This fifth person has to do it. So now you've created barriers in your engagement. You've cut yourself off from love. You've cut yourself off from friends. You've cut yourself off from people that may need you, or you may need them. This is how it happens. And so your brain is constantly going through these various events, and these are creations from a holographic brain. And once you understand that you are in control of what images you create and what images you destroy, this is why when you use it for your benefit, like you can create negative events, you can destroy negative events. You can destroy enemies out of your life by simply thinking about them in a way that eliminates them, buries them, right? Sends them on where you can send them off a cliff, right? You send them off a cliff. When I say that, I'm saying that mentally, right? If you have allowed them to affect you to where they're sending you off a cliff, your enemies are hating you and slandering you and gossiping against you and doing all of these things against you, and now you're affected by it. It's hurt your nervous system. You're feeling the emotional pain, right? Don't allow that enemy or that being, whatever it is, whatever force, to affect your creative abilities. You maintain a positive outlook on what you want in your life. And this is a part of neuroplasticity. This is a part of the neuroscience of Sabatic, because you're creating the events. And in creating the events, you materialize the events. Why? Let me tell you why you materialize the events. Because the material etheric, the material world that you experience, that you store in your mind. This is going to get into a very deep science with the holographic brain. You are taking in particles, atoms that are reflecting off of, right now, there's atoms reflecting off of me that are going into this camera and being sent to, right, your eye. Right now, you're seeing me 8,000 miles away. How are you seeing me? You're seeing literally the reflection of these clothing, of this environment. You're seeing that. You're taking it in. You're taking in physical. You're literally seeing me physically. The physical part of me is going into your eyes. The physical part of, because it's light. Light is particles. So you're taking in part of the image. What are you doing with this? You're storing it inside. Everyone knows when you have particles, there's negative and positive, which is magnetism, attraction, and repulsion, right? So this is the science. When you take in the particles of what you smell, you literally, when you smell something, right, the vibration of the atoms of the food, right, are released into the air. Those particles go inside physically. They touch your nose. And that physical atom is converted into a chemical message and transferred to your brain as a physical thing. So even though you may, you smell a turkey, right? your mother, grandmother, right, or whoever is cooking a turkey, right? You're literally taking in the physical part of the turkey. And the father literally explained, he said, that's why some people, when they're cooking, because they're breathing in the food, they're full. They don't want to eat after. They call it prana, some sma, or the breathing in of the energy, right? That literally is vital. It vitalizes, or the vitality of the energy literally gives you nutrients. And so your environment, you're taking these things in, your brain stores it physically. What happens when you want to recall it or have a memory or think about a specific event? Your brain goes into that, right, the nerves or the memory cells where the physical event is stored in the form of chemical messages, right? And it literally pulls that physical chemical image, and through the reference beams or from what you've gathered, creates the hologram in the brain. And in that event, you can attract the material matter to the event. How? Because when you think about a particular, this is the power of the brain. When you think about an event, where you want to be in 2 years, right? The more vivid you think about what you're going to be, where you're going to be, how much money you're going to make, how much information you're going to study, how much knowledge you're going to obtain, what you're going to do to assist in the growth of your nation, how you're going to assist to help usher in this new cycle, how you're going to assist in freeing the Father and removing ourselves from this, all of that creative power. The moment you create that image, the material world begins to become attracted to it. That's how this table, this wooden table, a tree from the conscious ether tree, right, grew or attracted the particles from the environment and grew the tree. It attaches itself, right? How does it attach? The material matter begins to cling on to this particular object. The material matter clings on to the baby or the spirit of the baby to grow the baby. The framework, the etheric shell is there. The mind of the being is there. So the reasoning begins to pull from the material world. The mother pulls from the material world, breathing the atoms in and grows the flesh. There's literally flesh in the air. This is your ancient spiritual science. The woman grows the baby from the ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Your body becomes flesh again through the decomposition, and it becomes all particles within the atmosphere. You don't only have rubber in the atmosphere and ions and particles. You have flesh in the air, skin particles. You know how much DNA is lost from your body every day? You scratch dry skin and you see the flakes and dust go into the air. You ever seen that? Well, you think they settle. Not all of them settle. Where are all the bodies, the flesh of the bodies that are in the graveyard? When you pull up a body, you see that the bone is there, but what happened to the flesh? It went to the earth. It went to the planet. The planet has the dust in the air. You have all types of particles in the air. The mother breathes it in, right, and differentiates in the nose, differentiates the flesh from it, and she literally grows the baby from that in the blood, from the particles, the flesh in the blood. It's all recycled. And so it attracts to the framework of the conscious creation, the material world. It may take 9 months to complete. What happens with your visual, mental, conscious creation? The moment you create it and you visualize it and you see it, the material world begins to manifest its creation, because the attraction of the potency of the creation, the mind power that you have has created you into you. You said, I wanted to be a doctor, or I wanted to be a nurse, or I want to be a mechanic, or I want to be a plumber, right? And that started in the mind, and you begin to create what you're going to become and how you're going to become this being, how you're going to take the necessary steps. And then the actions begin, the material world begins to shape itself around your creation, and then you show up as who you're supposed to be. That's how powerful, and it goes on and on and on, right? It's an infinite world of creative powers that you have. You have the power to create, and all of this ties into your brain being a hologram and able to create an image that the material world has to become or has to manifest through. The same way you're driving on a highway. That creation of a specific highway didn't start out as that direction. I-95 didn't start just, how did it become the highway? How did the road get there, and the shape of the asphalt and the measurements and the engineering? How did that take place? Well, it came from a person's mind. And then they decided, the ones that's in control at the last cycle, they were in control of how to dictate the direction of people and where they should go. So the mind created the road. It was the physical manifestation of having other people's minds combined to see the vision that you have. So you manifested this vision and placed it in other people's minds. And in that manifested the work of this particular road. That happens anywhere with anything. A car that's designed in the mind, drawn on paper, so it can be visualized. The visual is created, is introduced as you introduce it as a creator to others, and then they use the same imagery, the holographic projection that you're projecting to them is the hologram. The same way a hologram is projection, you can project a hologram in a particular environment, and people will see an image that's not really there. It's the manipulation of light, right? What does a laser mean? Or the hologram comes from the laser, which is light emission, right? What is the word? What is laser? Light amplification, simulation. Let me find out what it's an acronym. Excuse me. The holographic. Oh, light amplification, stimulated emission radiation. Yeah. So that's how holograms are used. So your brain as a hologram is responsible. You just stop using it because you've depended on other people's creative abilities to live in their conscious. And that's why our people are in the mind of others. The Muslims, Christians. I keep going back to the religious world because that has dominated. That's what's caused you as a race to become controlled, because you are living in someone else's conscious. Their creative, or what they created for you, or they created for you to believe and accept. You've done it, and you begin to create your own pictures. You begin to create your own Jesus images, and your own churches, and your own spirit ghost beings that you want to worship, and your own biblical texts, and your own Quranic translations, and your own mosque, and worshiping your own worshiping these other beings, their spirit forces, and not tying into your non-ether universal etheric forces, your brain ether forces. You haven't tapped. This is why this doctrine is vital. It's not just because of being the Father, His Excellency, our Heavenly One incarnated, just wanted to write a bunch of books just to give you. So for what? No. When you open it, it gives you the creative ability for you to exist within this new cycle, because the mind of the old cycle 6 ether forces have dissipated. It takes 6,000 years to dissipate. The same way ghosts dissipate. The same way fog dissipates. In the cycles of natural nature, 9 ether has a time, 6 ether has a time. Now it's time for 9 ether, which is the potent gases, the creative forces, the original creative forces of primary creation's time to rule. And in that time to rule, the mind of the beings who were created in that cycle has to use the science in order to rule. And in order to rule in this new cycle, and you say you want your liberation, you say you want your freedom, you say you want to be removed from the evil spell, you say you want all of these things, if you want positive, you have to use the mind of the original deities that was responsible for the growth of this conscious new cycle, this 6,000 year, this new 6,000 year, this 20 renewal of this 24,000 year cycle. Our deities, our Nathar, they will connect with you and give you the potency and the ability to think in a way that's outside of the information that's given to you through the matrix of six ether ghost beings that has ruled the last 6,000 years. And so this is the science of Wu Sabat. I hope I'm clear. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so let's move into some of the other questions. We've been okay, so that's the holographic brain. Now, another question came up. How is reasoning triggered in the brain? How do you trigger reasoning, which is your thought process, which is a natural process? How do you trigger reasoning? And how is it strengthened the brain? Right? So material, natural ether energy of the brain. The brain has a natural ether to it. That's what's all constantly emanating through thought. That's why you can't see it, because it's etheric. You can't see thoughts, right? Though it is an object, but it's not weighable. You can't put a thought on a scale. You only can put the material matter's creation from the thought on a scale. You can weigh the object, but you can't weigh the thought, because the thought exists within a specific space that's between nothingness and somethingness. It's the thought, the bridge, it's the glue between those two worlds. And that's where the magic happens. But with this natural ether energy of the brain, damag, right? The potential energy, mind energy that melts down becomes what? Active. So this etheric brain, natural energy, material, natural energy, once it melts down, that melting down part is the best way the Father describes from the etheric to the material, that invisible transformation. This is where quantum physicists say they don't know how energy becomes a particle, right? That's the etheric part. This is the science that the Father is teaching that they don't know about. So between this melting down, once it becomes active, right? The creative energy then melts down to become active, creative, magic energy to form the reasoning. So you trigger it by pulling from the mental reservoir a natural material etheric energy. It melts down and becomes active brain energy. And then in that, the reasoning begins. What happens is there's an interception in this matrix where once that is melted down, the program in your brain pulls that and converts it to a religious belief system. The reasoning, it eliminates the reasoning and then touches the belief. The reasoning will give you the answer, but there's an interception because the computer, the virus of belief intercepts the information. It takes the information and distorts it. So you begin to think outside of, that's why you try to explain creation of life. You say, well, God is responsible. The events in your life, you want to thank God. You go to an irrational belief system because that's the programming from your computer. You got to watch how your computer programming pulls out information. So that etheric, natural material, natural ether energy that becomes active, the moment it becomes active in the mind, you can't have no interceptions from outside forces. Your brain has to strictly focus on the reasoning of as a Nuwaupian, as a new being. The reasoning part is the intellect. That's the real outformation. And reasoning brings about logic, common sense, basic thinking, without any interceptions. That's how you trigger reasoning. You trigger reasoning by making sure that when you get the thought, you take that particular thought and only apply reasoning abilities, non-emotional. Don't take the reasoning or the fact and then try to create emotions or belief systems around it because you feel a certain way about it. That's the first mistake. People take a fact, they apply feeling, now they become emotional and they distort the real information. They distort the data because they're overlaying past events. They're overlaying past experiences. They're overlaying the ego. I know what he really meant to say. This all happens all the time. So you have a lot of work to do when it comes to reprogramming the mind. Okay, there's an interesting statement here. It says scientists. I see my own tweet here. It says scientists know and can demonstrate how energy becomes particles primarily by converting pure energy, like high energy photons, into matter, antimatter. There's you can't. There's no quantum physics. I hear you. It sounds good, but there's no way, because there's no way to determine. There's no way to determine, right, where energy becomes a particle. Because the reason why there's a okay in let's say this, because I hear you, but they can't determine at what point. That's what I'm saying. At what point in the existence of energy when it converts, where it becomes matter, because the matter that they're claiming it becomes is unweighable and is not detectable. You can't detect it insofar as this point, energy particle. There's literally the space in between is unmeasurable. That's what I mean by that. Maybe you're speaking of something a little different. So let's move on to another question. So let me read this part about the reasoning. Yeah, that's what I meant when that space is at the moment the energy says I'm a particle. In that space, they don't see the conversion. There's no way to detect it because one, it happens at such a quantum level that even quantum computers they can't find where the particle is, but because by the time they measure it, they said a particle be across the universe. And I did a lecture on this. A few, maybe I don't remember the lecture. I think it was 17, something like that. Where I addressed that. Let me go back because we was talking about quantum entanglement. Yeah, it speaks about it's the probability, high probability and very low probability. It's called. This is what it's called: the Heisenberg uncertainty. Right. The Heisenberg uncertainty is where protons normally repel each. No, pardon me. That's not it. It's where the wave function is how they know that it's a particle, but they can't detect the particle. They only can detect the wave. That's the energy part. But the particle, they can't detect because it's moving at such an infinitesimal, at such a fast speed that the moment they begin to, they think it appears, right? It could be across the universe. So they can't. So the only thing they use is the amplitude of the wave and the wave function. They use the positive position, right? The probability and the distribution. It says there's uncertainty where the exact position is. There's an uncertainty in the momentum because the wave is made of different wavelengths. So that's why it's difficult. So let's get back to this natural ether energy, right? And I hope y'all enjoying this. Let me know it's appreciated and I've been clear because started off trying to get everything together, right? Raobat Musar, right? So let's get into this verse 18. It says the natural ether energies of the brain, right? The padamag. And we have some Sabatic words that will introduce you to, like fakor, thinking, right? Sakaf, cell, right? These are words from that the Father introduces and teaches in this actual fact. He covers many of those words: Wajuban, Mikwak, which is planet, right? Tamal at actions. You see this here. Also padamag, which is your brain. Tawalat, frequencies we talked about. Ta'alam, which is your knowledge. But this verse 18 speaks about how the brain melts down. The energies of the brain melt down when activated by rules of natural nature and suitable takshuat conditions in fatar nature. For such meltdown, listen to this. For such meltdown of course, to occur, brain natural ether energy are the ethers in material matter that produce brains. So the brain that you have, the ether that created it comes from the highest quality of ether. And because the brain is responsible for transforming etheric thought or natural ether thought from the mental reservoir, and the bridge of bringing the thought from the mental into the brain and mind is where the synapsidal or the thought, the meltdown takes place. The meltdown is the etheric gases melt down and become condensed enough for your cells, your neurons, to pick it up. And that's where the magic happens in between. So the Father speaks about this. Now let's move on to the next question. These are questions that was asked, I thought would be great to continue with this lecture. It says, how does chemistry tie into the sensory inputs the brain uses? Okay, so wow. So the brain has something called BDNF, which is brain derived neurotrophic factor, neurotrophic factor. BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor. What is that? This is what creates neurons. This is part of the process of neuroplasticity that creates neurons or new neuronal pathways. Pardon me. Neuroplasticity creates the neuronal pathways. The creation of neurons is your neurogenesis. But BDNF is how, or the protein used to create the neuronal pathways. Okay, so that's the chemistry aspect. Now, what is it? What is BDNF? This is all up so you understand. And this is not something that we got in a day. This took a lot of study. So hopefully you have to replay this, pause it, which you're supposed to do anyway to take the notes. The crazy thing is the more you go down to a microscopic level, on a subatomic level, when you think more particles are actually created and scientists don't have, okay, that's a good statement. How would this relate to bending air? I come across a book that spoke about the airbenders. Well, airbenders is the etheric, is really, when they say air, they're speaking about ether, because air, ether, gas, it's a grosser element. Grosser elements are your solid elements. Fire, earth, water, air. Those are grosser elements of the etheric elements. In the etheric world, there's an entire blueprint of all the gross matter that exists on the planet in the material world. All of it is designed from a specific type of ether. In the etheric world, whatever you see manifest came from a specific ether. Caucasoid, 6 ether. Indians, 7 ether, 8 ether, right? Dravadu or Dravidians, right? Then you have Nagardinatu, which are your 9 ether. The Father said 9 ether is just 90%. 90% of 100% ether. So as you materialize, you lose a certain amount of etheric energy because all of it cannot condense, or all of it is not melted down. It's too fine, it's too magical to melt down to become all dense as material matter. But the material matter that does get melted down to become, right, from the etheric world, right? Like I said, like the Father said before, the most quality ether is the brain. That's what makes the best ether, creates brain. And then other other characteristics or qualities, or let's say lesser qualities create lesser or other types of matter. So it just depends, right? Even some of your animals, like the reptilian type animal, they came from less quality ether, right? And this is why you have certain animals in the animal kingdom. Some look, some have different types of structures, faces, brains, all types of different creations, because the ether that they were produced from has different qualities and different levels of it. You as an Agardanadu, as an African, you have the highest quality of ether available because you are part of, you're the prime mover of the highest conscious gases that exist. So you're a combination of all those gases or etheric parts, and you melt down to become active deities on the planet. And because you have the first, you have the best ether, you have the best body structure, you have the best hair, you have the best melon. Everything that you were created to be is reasonably in tune with nature. That's why the melanin you have is in tune with the sun, right? The pupil of your eye, the black or the brown, are solar panels that absorbs the sun's rays and through photosynthesis and converts it into energy. You are able to do that. Why aren't other species or other animals able to do that? Because you have the highest quality of ether that's in the etheric world. You get me? Hopefully that's clear. So this back to this protein. This protein is responsible for, let me give you some of the characteristics. It encourages neuroprogenitor cells and stem cells to proliferate and differentiate into mature neurons. That's BNFD. Remember that. This is important. You'll hear it later. And you hear people try to speak about it. I'm telling you what they're doing. They're following this podcast. They're following these actual facts. They're following the Patra. They're following the master secrets. They're running out of stuff to say. And now they have to even follow us into the extraterrestrial doctrine that we've been teaching. And all we can say is, we told you so. Now they literally had, I don't want to get off topic, right? I'll come back to that, about the meeting that they had with the religious world, right? About the religious communities in Texas they had to inform them that what the religious world is about to embark upon, you have to prepare their congregation, something that we've already told everyone before. But let's get back to this protein, so you know why this protein is important and what you need to do to stimulate the protein's growth to make sure that you maintain proper neuronal productivity and replication within your body as you get older, because it's important to do as you get older to maintain this new brain activity so you can stay young. So it promotes the survival, growth, and the maturation of new neurons in the hippocampus, right? We know about the hippocampus area, which is critical for learning and thinking. This is what BNFD is. Okay, so also it's responsible for synapses plasticity. We talked about that. You know, a synapsid is the exchange between neurons. This is the magical part from nothingness to somethingness, where the etheric energy is converted to thought from the mental reservoir, so you can think about it in your brain to have a physical, actual activity take place. Well, this BN brain derived. Let me get it right. Brain derived neurotropic factor is responsible for synaptic plasticity, which is the growth of this communication network, right? It aids in constructing new synapses, connections between neurons, allowing these new neurons to integrate. The integration is the neural pathways that are created that grows your brain to very strong and more productive, right? So the stronger the neural pathways, the stronger the communication to other areas of the brain, the more information that can be passed on, the stronger reasoning, the stronger thinking, then the stronger creative abilities, and that affects your whole existence. It creates a stronger you and the ability for you to create the things that you want and the reality within the laws of natural nature. Don't use this and try to think you're going to create a better life without a purpose. Your purpose, if you use this science, is to be purposeful to natural nature. That's it. To be helper ether. We talked about those types of ether, right? to be a helper ether. And what helper ether is the sun's rays, it's the light of the physical world, right? And helper ether is what you as an African is supposed to become. And he mentions that in verse 100. Let me read that so you know what helper ether is, which you're supposed to become as a part of natural nature so you can have your purpose. Oh, helper ether, that's in neuroscience, right? I think. One of these is, okay, yes. Helping ether. Helping ether is the sun's rays, sunshine in the physical life and the light of the physical world. But as helper ether, as an African, it's in verse 101, it says, Negroids by nature is grown on the best and the richest part of the planet, of Fafre Ka, the sun-drenched part for you to become helper ether, right? For all others, you are the gods of the Kawak Taha, planet Earth. Now, helper ether is helping your race become the best that it can become. And so this helping ether is what you have to, I'm saying, back to my point, that using this science is not for a selfish purpose, right? You can't use it to go off and try to become successful in your own world because nature won't assist you. People often say, why am I not successful? Why am I not doing it? Because you're not being purposeful for your race. What works for you has to work for your race. If it doesn't work for your race, it won't work for you. And if it only works for you and doesn't work for your race, then you're not purposeful because it's selfish. And nature is not, natural nature doesn't move on a selfish frequency. Nothing in nature takes. If you look at natural nature, it's always giving. The sun gives light, right? Trees give food, oxygen, right? It takes in the negative, the carbon dioxide, right? And converts it to oxygen, right? So it's constantly working to give you substance. Same thing with water. Water flows in a specific direction. It doesn't go in another direction. It doesn't go in its own will, alters its route to go to another direction for it because it wants to meet another river. It's not a selfish frequency. You don't see that in nature. So if you're, as a natural nature being, in order to be a part and to be purposeful and to be successful, what you must be purposeful and helpful for the entire race, or it should be able to contribute to the assistance as helping ether, which you're supposed to be. That's a different type of ether. You were grown to be helping your race. And in that, cooperation is needed, which is and the elimination of competition, right? No division. All of that was the viruses was introduced because you were in the wrong environment, and in order to control you, they have to create you into who you are, not who you are supposed to be. So this synapse plasticity, right, and getting this protein more stimulated will help you regrow your brain so you can reprogram yourself. It's not a conversion thing. When people say, "Oh, I got converted," No, neuroplasticity is a science. This doctrine is scientific to grow you as a new being, not convert you into a specific doctrine. Totally different. That's what separates the two. Let's move forward. So we have other topics to cover. Right, molecular mechanism. Upon binding to the TRK receptor, BDNF activates intracellular signaling cascades such as P13. These are types of proteins that assist in the process, which turn on genes responsible for neuronal development and survival. So this protein turns on genes. The genes they're responsible for growing the neuronal pathways. BDNF is also responsible for that. I hope that's clear. Any questions? We've been going about an hour, 40 minutes, which is typical for our lectures. I hope I'm clear, and I hope you're sharing it. And get your questions together. If you don't have any questions, don't worry about it, because most of the questions I'm giving you will bring more questions. And these are the top questions for this topic. And it's kind of heavy for the science buffs that people love science. I love science. This is a scientific doctrine. So you have to digest this. Once the spell is broken, you'll be able to move into growing your new self, right? And this is vital to that. So what? Okay, so what must Nagard-Nadu? This is what we talked about, but the question comes: what must Nagard-Nadu, Negroids, Blacks, Africans, Afafre, Ka'u do in order to rebuild your brain from generational hijacking? Your brain has been generationally hijacked. You've been chipped in the matrix. All these chips are exist everywhere you go. Any information that's chipping your Tautek, Born King, I appreciate you, Zamal. Any information that has chipped your computer, the computer has been introduced to a memory chip, and the memory chip typically are monotheistic religions, education in order to survive, right? And conformity to society's norms. When you deal with the chipping of religion, monotheistic religions, or any of the religious doctrines, these chips take the computer network that you're naturally supposed to be logged onto, and it reconfigures your network to a system that you're not naturally connected to etherically. And once that happens, then all of your natural programming has to go out the door. The programming that is reintroduced from the chip becomes the base programming of your computer. It's the same way when you connect to a certain network, you have to have the IP address, you have to have a password, you have to have the network information, right? Once that takes place, all of the information from the network you have access to. And other people on the network has access to it as well. And once you link to that network, it's very difficult to remove yourself from the network. A programmer has to delete you or cut you off. In our case, our Father is trying to eliminate our connection to the networks of the chips of the religious doctrines, right? Islam has hijacked your program, your base program, your natural program, and changed even how you speak, how you respond. It has changed how you dress. It has changed how you treat your goddess, the mother feminine goddess. It has changed the natural order tried to change the natural order, which makes it unnatural. If it's unnatural, it's of the old cycle. This is the natural new cycle we're coming in. The unnatural cycle was unnatural things were created. The unnatural Adamite was bred, not created. They were bred. Unnatural seeds, unnatural foods, unnatural environments, unnatural systems. That's that last cycle. If you are still chipped from those unnatural programmings of that cycle, then your network of this new cycle, the new etheric cycle that our Father has reconnected us to our ancestors, you won't be able to exist in that world because your computer won't be able to exist because you won't receive the information it takes to be of purpose or be of helper ether in this next cycle. So that's one of the chips. The other one is the education to survive. What is that? Your education. This is the hijacking that took place. In order to survive, they taught you in order to have a job, you have to become educated. Job equates to you as survival. Job equates to you as money so you can feed your family, so you can eat, so you can have a roof over your head, clothes on your back, right? If job equates to survival, then the job that you're looking for, and they say in order to get this job, in order to survive, because that's what job equals food equals money, money equals food, shelter, etc. If they say job is equivalent to education, now it's an algebraic formula. Now education equals survival. That's why, okay, so you have to get this education. You don't question whether you have to get the education because it's necessary to survive. So you're not going to question whether you have to get the education. You're just going to go to school and get this education. You don't care what it is. It's not necessarily to decipher if it's the right education or not. It's something that you have been given as an option of death. Because why? Food, clothing, shelter. Without food, you die. Without clothes, you're exposed to the elements. Without shelter, you're homeless. You may survive because you can't eat, etc. Can't cook, whatever. Job is equivalent to that. Education becomes survival. So now people are obsessed with getting their education from a specific school that came from particular authors that didn't have your best interest when they wrote the books. So that has chipped you for generations. Once you find out the education doesn't help, right? I think I saw a video where, right, there was like 50 lawyers that burnt their law degrees because their law degrees wasn't worth anything. Why? Because there's more lawyers than there are as criminals. In order for you, right? Let me say this: criminals who can pay for lawyers, because there's a lot of criminals. The system is based on criminality, whether which side of the so-called law you're on, it depends. However, in order for lawyers to be successful, criminal lawyers, defense attorneys, prosecutors, in order for judges, all of them to have jobs, they have to depend on crime. It's a lie when they say, oh, we don't want crime. You do want crime. Because if everyone stopped committing crime, your jails would shut down. Your prisons would shut down. Prosecutors wouldn't have a job. So you need crime in order to have the illusion that lawyers is a good profession, so they can pay money to get the education in order to get the job, in order to survive, right? So it all correlates. So that's out the door. If you don't get the education, then it's done. And we found out that it's not worth anything. Then you have society's norms, conformity. You have to conform to those. If you change or go outside, they'll lock you up, they'll arrest you, they'll do all of those things. So you've been chipped from all areas of your existence. And in order for you, like the question says, to rebuild your brain, right, from generational hijacking, you have to reject all of what they've given you. You have to be reborn. You have to have a double resurrection. Though you've introduced to Wusabat, you've been introduced to Nuwaupu, you have access to the publications. What do you do next? You have to reject what they gave you. Because if you're holding on to it as a survival mechanism, you can't fully move into this next cycle properly, because once their system falls apart, your dependency on them will die. And that, let me restate that. Your dependency upon them in their death, if the stronger it is, the more detrimental or traumatic it's going to be when you see a system fall. When it switches over, you're going to be traumatized because you've had so much investment in their system, so much of their programming in them. If you don't voluntarily reject it, when it's time to be forced to reject it, it's going to be very hurtful. People are not going to know they're not going to know what to do. That's why you have to start rejecting these things systematically over time and stay in tune with Patrak, stay in tune with these actual facts, stay in tune with the master secret, stay in tune with our spiritual guide, our heavenly Father in flesh. That's the only way. I mean, I'm sorry, people may say, oh, it has to be other way. There is no other way, because natural nature hasn't designed it to be another way. There's beings that are responsible for the ushering in of this new cycle, and our deity is at the head of this mission. That's why he's our president. That's why he's our spiritual God. That's why he's worked so hard tirelessly, because as the head, he's done most of the work for us. The other part is to you to apply and reject every form of introduction that they've given you from the matrix, through their chips, from religion, by reprogramming your own mind from our own mental reservoir. We have a mental reservoir that you have to program your mind from. Your own kuhu, or your oversoul. You have an oversoul, which we're going to address in the next lecture, right? Any questions coming in? Okay. Yeah, so let's move forward. So these are basic. Okay, there's some other questions here. What creates and grows and develops the physical body? That's a great question. We talked about it, but it's not necessarily clear. And like I said, if you want the actual facts, Patrak, make sure you email. I'll give you directions to them, right? And let you know where you can get the books, where you can buy the books, and how. Email me, King Nesto. I think that's your name. Email me. Anyone here, if you know how you can email, email is in the description, and I'll give you that. I don't know where you are. It depends on where you are located. I can assist you and guide you to get into publications if you're close to a bookstore, or if, just email me and I can help you out. Some people don't have access to a bookstore. Email as well, and I'll get you those answers. Survival is a doctrine of right knowledge, focusing on mental liberation, health, ancestral connection, not preparing for cosmic shift. Okay, so is that a question? That's a question. Survival is a doctrine of right knowledge, focusing on mental liberation, health. Is that a question for me? And also, like I said, King Nestor, I think that's your name. Hoping to pronounce it right. Okay. Did I answer your email? If I answered you, fine. If not, just email me again. A lot of emails come in. This reminder emails as well. Don't be if I don't reply within a day, send another email. Trust me. I normally take no longer than 24 hours to reply. Exactly. You're on the land, our land. Exactly. So what is it? What creates and grows and develops the physical body? Okay, so this is a good one right here. Yeah, I'm just making people aware of those. Some people that are listening that have email, right? Yes, appreciate you. So what grows the body? Everyone know what grows. It says when brain synapses, this is important, right? When the brain, in the womb of the mother, when the brain synapses magnetically and magically come together, right? They unite to process ether, which is the neurogenesis. So in the womb, as these cells begin to come together, attract, the etheric seeds that are melted down begin to coagulate. That's like come together in it. Co-ingel, I don't know the word is on the tip of my tongue. Co-ingel, coagulate, right? Coagulate, I think that's the word, where they pull together and they begin to grow other brain cells. So this is the ether, the quality ether from the brain, natural brain ether that comes together to grow the body. From that, right? From this part of this process in the womb of the mother, a microscopic process where the etheric seeds of the brain material matter, the etheric seeds of brain ether melt down and begin to grow the cells of the brain. The reasoning, it pulls from the reasoning part. Reasoning starts to be created. From that very small seed, reasoning begins to grow or is stimulated from these cells multiplying and coming together. The brain begins to reason. And from the brain reasoning, the body begins to grow. From this is what the eye needs. This is what from the genes. It pulls from the genetics, the programming. It begins to reason out the structure. This is real intelligence, not artificial intelligence. This is real intelligence that's programmed to begin to reason out. This part goes here. The cells go here. The heart goes here. The bones grow here. 5 fingers are here, right? The forearm, the shoulders, the spine, everything comes from that spine. And then the neurological pathways begin to create the nervous system that allows the rest of the body to become maturely attached to the growth from the mind of the reasoning part of this etheric brain, natural brain ether that's within the cells through the synapses. It's not in, let me not say in, so I don't want you to think it's placed in somewhere. It's this space in between nothingness and somethingness. The reasoning begins to, when that reasoning takes place from that development, The reasoning grows you. And that this is before religion. That's why the mind as a reasoning, let's say, conductor, your life is grows and you learn through reasoning. A child learns through reasoning. If I put the block here, if it falls, that means I didn't put it on the strong enough, or I didn't stabilize it. The mind begins to reason. So reasoning is grows the body. Not so it doesn't just magically happen. It grows the being. So people will say, well, what about birth defects? And what about those? These are interceptions within the cell DNA structure that affects the reasoning part, and other factors, diet, environment, all of those things affect the reasoning aspect. So most people that are believers or religious, they pass on the lack of reasoning to the descendancy or to their progeny. And in doing that, the children, they don't have the intelligence as a reasoning Nuwaupian. When you have a Nuwaupian mind or a Sabatic mind where you are in an environment that stimulates reasoning that's not under the influence of those chips, the mind develops stronger, the body develops stronger. Most people in a natural environment are naturally stronger. Why? Because they don't have those chip interceptors from society that has distorted the reasoning ability for your body to grow the way it's supposed to grow. So this is a part of neuroscience of Wu Sabat, how the body grows from reasoning. Okay, so this is all within this doctrine. This is your spiritual science. This is the level that the Father has taken us to. So what does brain produce? These are another question. What is the difference between natural ether energy and universal energy? Okay, so let me get to some questions because we touched on this for some time. Okay, question. Why are we programmed to remember things? It says, why are we programmed to remember things or record events? What's the knowledge on that? To remember things or events? So it says, why are we programmed to remember things? You're not programmed to remember things. You have memory cells that are capable of remembering. So, okay, you could say you're programmed to remember, yes, because genes are your DNA is programmed to create memory cells that are capable of remembering what you stored. Let me say it that way. So in your genes, all of your genetic makeup and the genes that are responsible for growing the brain and reasoning and the development of the brain, in that genetic, in those genomes and the DNA, there's proteins that's responsible for growing the area of the brain that's responsible for memory. When those memory cells develop, what you experience, you begin to feel it. The bytes, like a computer, you begin to put in the information, put in the events, put in what you are experiencing, what you are seeing. So you're not programmed to remember the events. You are programmed to be able to recall the events. What you're putting in, what you're taking in, the cells, memory cells record it, but how you remember is determined upon how your brain is strong enough to recall the events based on the sensory perception that it has received. In other words, the stronger the sensory perception, we talked about this a few minutes ago, but I'll reiterate, the stronger the sensories are what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you smell. The stronger those sensors are, the stronger the memory, because it has a stronger programming of data from the event. The more information of the event that your brain, your memory cells have, the stronger or the vivid the memory is. So you can remember an event mostly a lot of people prioritize things that are important and traumatic events. Traumatic events have a significant effect sometimes on your memory because it just depends on if your amygdala is in a high stress factor, right? A fight or flight, sometimes it takes time to remember. You can't remember. Your trauma takes blood away from your brain and sends it to your limbs, the amygdala part of your brain, which is responsible for fight or flight. A lot of the brain blood goes to the limbs to protect yourself. But like I said, smelling a specific scent from your favorite person, eating a specific food from this specific person. Let's say interchanging genetics from this person, kissing and sex. These sensors and the data that comes from them, the stronger they are stored, the more easy it is to remember. So let me say that you're not necessarily programmed to remember. Your brain is programmed to recall the events that you place in it. If that's clear. Okay. The light, is that clear? Okay, you naturally understand. That's good because you're intelligent. Most people tune into this channel have a high level of intelligence. I'm not saying others don't, but try to break away from listening to Razak. You have a question mark? What is that question mark? Is that a question mark for me? Let me know. Stay, please. I'm trying to stay. I know it's hard. We all are fighting this battle. Stay away from these feeds that are deadening your mind, gossiping. They're literally taking away your bites. You're filling it in with a bunch of bites, and they're taking away from the bites you need to digest this information. Okay. Can we say that muscle up the brain is to enforce our willpower? Yes. Yes, your willpower. The stronger your willpower, the more effective you are in your creative position or your creative intentions. The stronger your willpower, and the willpower is determined based upon how much you don't allow others to control your will, which is giving them back everything. The moment you realize that you don't need them for anything, the moment you realize you don't need their education, the moment you realize you don't need their system, the moment you realize you don't need their gods, you don't need their Bibles, you don't need their Quran, you don't need these texts, you don't need their information to control you, right? Your willpower will begin to develop, and you'll do things willfully on your own in tune with natural nature that's productive for your race and everyone else. Okay? So I hope that's clear. Any other questions? This is a lot of brain power food, right? I just had to give y'all this because it's more to it. Maybe we'll do a part 2, right, of this. But this is basically to cover you regrowing yourself, regrowing the affirmation. Why it's vital to take in the action. People don't know why should I have actual facts? Why should I really be a Nuwaupian? Why should I really listen to our Father in flesh? Why should I really tune in? Right? But because the facts regrow you who you are, so you can become who you're really supposed to be. You don't really know who you are. Wouldn't it be great before you transition, or we don't have to die, we can have everlasting life? Wouldn't it be great to reach that potential where you will receive everlasting life because you are who you're supposed to be? The reason your people are dying is because they're not fulfilling their purpose. Nature will protect you if you are fulfilling your purpose. If you are assisting and being helper ether. You realize that a lot of look at the people that fell off within the last 5 years. Look around. 5 years ago, there was people all over talking this and speaking negative and speaking, right? Natural nature is eliminating these people out of the scene. You're literally forgetting about these individuals. And I'm not even going to mention their names. They've been talking negative for 10, 15 years, trying to use other people's names and be divisive and create division. Nature said, get out of here. Nature eliminated these people. You don't even hear nothing from them, like they didn't even exist. And it happens. The Father said, natural nature can remove people from your thoughts. They can remove the enemy from your mind. You can literally bury them and they won't even surface again. And it's like, yeah, that's a fact. And there's certain names I want to mention, but I'm not going to do it because I'm not resurrecting anybody. We have resurrecting words. Our words have life-giving words. I'm not giving anyone life. If you're not a part of the process, hey, I'm not mentioning it, but you know who I'm talking about. Okay? So I'll make sure this is basically, I'll bring this to a close. This doesn't have to be 3 hours. I just wanted to give this to you because it's a lot more to it. And it's something that definitely I suggest just get the book so you can finish what we started with this this actual fact, right? And this is a topic for different types of people, but it's a part of your spiritual science. Oh, you wish? Oh, I didn't know. I'm thinking we can go on. It's just if you don't have any questions, I like the 3 hour stuff. Y'all like me talking. I appreciate that. Okay, so okay, we can continue. I have some more questions. Let me cover up 3 more questions before I go. Okay, yeah, a few more questions. That actually was it. Okay, I did want to cover this last question. Okay, great. We love the teachings. Great. Sometimes, I try to limit out on people's time, but this is good for content, and we need these teachings. We need it. This is something that's going to go on forever. Don't think it's going to stop. We got more, but I definitely want to. The Father explained, and I'm going to get more clarity. But what are etheric beings? This is something that people wanted to know. Like, please, what? Like, you hear about spiritual beings, you hear about soul, you hear about. So, what are etheric beings? So, the Father expresses that etheric beings, and this is really deep. In the etheric world, we talked about the etheric world, and the Father explains as much as we can comprehend and more, but as much as we comprehend about the etheric world in a tangible way, in words that we can understand. Because he said, it's like, again, I'll reiterate, it's very difficult to explain. Tawutek for that compliment. I see it all. Very difficult to explain the spiritual world in a manner that where beings who are trapped in the 3-dimensional world can understand. Person, place, thing, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 3-dimensional world. How do you explain a 4th, 5th, and 6th dimension to beings who have basically been trapped in the 3-dimensional religious world without any access to the spiritual abode? And so the Father, in his meticulous method of addressing it, he explains what etheric beings are, because he is incarnated as Yanun, as an etheric being. This is Yanun. Yanun is the Etherian that speaks to him, the Riskian that speaks through him, that gives us this 76 trillion years of knowledge. So the question is, what is an etheric being? Etheric beings are various degrees of forms of concentrated mind. Let's ponder upon that. Concentrated mind, not brain. Mind and brain are different. Your mind is processed through your brain. You get me? Linked to my brain is my mind. But the link between mind and brain is what we've been talking about this lecture, with the synapses and the melting down of the etheric seeds that become thoughts or information that's transmitted between these neurological pathways. But in the etheric world, there's concentrated mental or concentrated mind, meaning imagine etheric world where the mind of the etheric world is concentrated to the point where it becomes known as ethereal energy, reasoning. Now, this is what etheric beings are. Concentrated mind known as ethereal energy, reason, who is the offspring. Okay? Offspring, etheric beings are the offspring of brain natural ether energies. Natural ether energies in the etheric world etheric beings are the offspring of that natural brain ether energy in the etheric realm. Concentrated mind. So they're mind beings, concentrated mind beings that has an access to the mental reservoir. Who knows how much mental information is available? The Father, as having 76 trillion years of knowledge, now it's understood in the etheric realm. There's concentrated mind there. You have a brain here, and there's compact, concentrated information that you can place in it. But in the etheric world, where the brain is not physical, the concentrated mind becomes potent, and who knows how much is packed in it. There's something that's imperceivable right now, but I'm trying to paint a picture of what the etheric beings are based on explanation that the Father gives, because him as an Etherian knows that etheric beings are the offspring of brain natural ethers energies, their tazul al vibrational level in their dimensions. So their vibrational levels in their dimensions of the etheric dimensions, these are various dimensions where etheric beings exist. They are the offspring, meaning that the I guess offspring is like spring off of, the child springs off of the mother. These etheric beings spring off of, as concentrated mind, off of these ethereal energies of reasoning that exists, which is a magic being. Reasoning is a being. It's just not dense enough to be physical. It only can be exercised through the brain, through the mental. Reasoning is a literal supernatural being. This is a whole nother. But I don't want to go too far out there because, boy, it's a lot. But in order to understand it, I mean, it's written for us to try to digest it. And this is a part of Wu Sabat that you'll hear scientists speaking about it now, right? You said go there. Let me tell you this. By the time this channel reaches a certain level, scientists are going to try to run ahead and speak about it. The conscious community, I'm telling you now, you go hear it right now, they're going to try to run ahead to speak about it. They're not going to be able to, though. They're not going to be able to keep up with us. They're not going to be able to keep up with me. They're not going to be able to keep up with the actual fact. They're not going to be able to keep up with what we're getting from the Father. He was thousands of years ahead of us. He gave us this information. I'm not just learning this information. I'm just expressing it. We've learned this information, but a lot of it wasn't, the time wasn't necessarily, it wasn't it wasn't the hereafter. Now we're in the hereafter. You can receive this information, but it has to be expressed and taught in a way that is comprehensible, and it doesn't sound confusing or a person just wanting to be deep. A lot of times these guys, they on these channels and they just want to be deep so bad. It's like, that didn't even make sense. I know that don't make sense. You can listen to it, was like, that was a lot, but I didn't get none of it, right? So we have to be mindful of that, and they're going to fall off too because they're not being purposeful. Their frequencies, their intentions is to just, get views or sound deep. But we're going to eliminate all of that. All of those people are going out. They're going to be eliminated. Watch within this next year, everyone is going to say, listen, I need these actual facts. I need to be upgraded. So that's what etheric beings are. I hope that's clear what etheric beings are. So you have let me go over the definition one more time. Etheric beings are various degrees. So you think about the degrees, various degrees of material vibrational matter. You have certain vibrations of matter. Iron vibrates differently from water. Water vibrates differently from gold. Gold vibrates differently from air. All of these various elements. In the etheric world, there's various degrees as well. However, the various degrees are not necessarily material, but they are degrees. And in those degrees, they form, these degrees become concentrated. So every various degree, and I don't even know, I'm not even giving a number because I can't even imagine. I don't want to speculate. We don't speculate with actual facts. We deal with facts. Can't imagine or don't know how many etheric beings actually exist, right? But the etheric being, you all will receive, if you're chosen, and if you elevate yourself, your own etheric incarnation, you have an etheric being. How concentrated, how much of its mind is concentrated, and which one it is another question. But that's the etheric beings, the concentrated mind, known as the ethereal energy reason, who is the offspring of brain natural ether energies. On their Tazul al vibrational, Tazuz al, right? Tazuz al vibrational level in their dimensions. Whatever dimensions they are in, they have their own various degrees that they exist. And in those various degrees, they are concentrated mind beings in that world. Hope that's clear. Okay? Okay, so, wow. Well, that was heavy, right? I hope it's clear, and I hope we're good. Tawakkum for y'all, for you all tuning in. So now let me give you very clear. I'm a Libra. I got it. Yeah, that's cool. Libras have a lot of reasoning. I like Libras. I like Geminis. I like Libras. I like most zodiac. I'm an Aquarius, so we pretty much get along with most of the zodiac signs, zodiac signs there. We landed already? Yeah, we landed. That's funny. Okay, so what was I about to say? Okay, so listen, the website. I know you've been waiting. I know don't think the vote is still going, but guess what? We're going to launch it on the father's birthday. That's the announcement I want to make. June 26, 2026. I need a few months to get this website perfect, right? I can't rush with it. And I'm not, because it's going to be for some long time. Everyone's information, not everyone's information, but all of you all voting. I have to have the voting of the people correct. It's a legal process. So we're going to launch it on the 26th. I'm doing my best to make sure. So that's approximately 2 months to get this site going. That's when we do the now or never. So we'll be campaigning until then. Don't think the campaign is stopped. We just had to iron out a few things amongst the nation about certain things about the vote. Right? 1 second. Okay. Yeah, the vote, right? The vote is going to take place. So you can't vote now. Everyone's asked, can I vote? Just be prepared to vote. The vote will go to the site. You do it on ballot. You can mail it in, or you can do it online. To the site, mail online, or go to the bookstore, one of the bookstores, and vote. Okay. So you'll have all of the information. It will be available. You still can go to the United Nuwaupian Nation website and read about your voters' rights. I'll put it in the group again. But please, if you have any questions, email. I have a few emails to answer. I know a few people had emailed me. I didn't get back to them. I'll get back to you. No stress. I had to go, take some time to prepare for this lecture. I hope it was well received. The actual facts, Patarak, and the master secrets. We're going to go. Let me also touch on this. The actual facts is a series, but when we say actual facts, we're talking about all of the information that is in the publications, including the master secrets, including the Patrak, which is the way. These are series of books that the Father calls the hereafter doctrine. So actual facts is not just these actual facts. Let me show them to you again. Right? This is a master secret to those that are not familiar. The ultimate reality. In this is actual facts. This is also a master secret. This is a series of books too. The Black Dot, Helix, Mind Link, and Mind Link. This is a master secret series, but there's actual facts here. He teaches actual facts in the number of series of publications. So, though I teach mostly the channel is called The Actual Facts, we're covering all of these publications, and we have a lot to cover, as you can see. So again, episode 19, I appreciate you all. Email me. Y'all need the publications. Email. Let's stay in touch. And also look out for the vote, the 19th. Why don't y'all suggest a topic? If I created the topics, but I'll put a survey in the community to say, hey, what topics would you like to hear from? What topics would you like to learn about? What can the next episode be? So we have 20 going forward. We completed 19, which is a perfected number. We made it this far. I hope you all that are tuning in, check out the other episodes. Keep the algorithm going. Keep us in the loop on YouTube and online. Make sure you share. Make sure if people want answers, a lot of the questions that people have that they have in episode, let's say 17, you'll find in episode 7. You have questions from episode 13, you find in episode 2. So just binge watch if you can. It's all facts, no gossip, no slander, no belief. Facts from our Father, the Heavenly Father in flesh, from our ancestors given to us to the Nuwaupian race to prepare you for what's to come. The year prepare for 2027. When 2027 hits, that's when you're going to say, I'm glad I'm in the right place. So I appreciate you all. Take care and enjoy your evening, and make sure you share and email for any of the publications. And until next time, May 19th, next lecture, and we'll have an upload coming soon. And all suggestions, anything you want to ask, we do have our Nuwaupian Naturals. Oh, I forgot another thing. I know y'all leaving, but let me just, those that are leaving. The Nuwaupian Naturals are in, your shea butter, black soap. We're going to have also campaign clocks, custom clocks with your face. You can put nice family gifts. They're assisting with the campaign. We have publicate. We have your flags. The flags are available. The patches are available. Lotion, all of those things. And I'll put it in the community so you'll all see what's available for your from your nation. Wear it proudly. Use your own products, your natural Nuwaupian Naturals. That's our line. We have black soap. We have shea butter. We have lotion, conditioner. All of those things are available. Email if you want any information on that. Black soap is directly from Ghana. The shea butter directly from Ghana, from Africa. Everything is called Nuwaupian Naturals. All of the things for you as a natural ether being, natural new being, you have to have these new products from your nation, the United Nuwaupian Nation, so we can make sure we all on one accord. The publications are available. Let's unify so we can make sure our Father comes home to a unified nation, and his hard work and his legacy, he'll see what his work has done, and we'll be a representation of who we are supposed to be as gods on the planet. And until next time, take care. Love you all. Wadu.